Hello! This video is intended for one person in particular, and they know who they are, but they are someone who claimed that half of a ham sandwich is bread. And I'm here to basically explain why that's not true. Now, what we're dealing with here is an argument of semantics, which is how most arguments are formed. But basically we have a statement, and we're trying to see if it is in any way valid. Spoiler alert, it's not, but let's explore. The statement in question doesn't provide much context, which causes issues that we'll get to in a minute, but basically it's very simple. Half of a ham sandwich is bread. Well, let's dissect it. Starting with the subject in question, the ham sandwich. What is a ham sandwich? Well, I didn't think I'd need to explain that. But because there is no context provided about the ham sandwich, we're going to have to assume a ham sandwich, and an assumed ham sandwich looks something like this. This is what most people will picture if you ask them to picture a ham sandwich. And again, that is because there has been no context provided as to the nature of the ham sandwich. But now we have a ham sandwich that is assumed, we can now continue with what are we exactly doing with this ham sandwich. And the statement makes it very clear. Half of a ham sandwich. So, let's half the ham sandwich. But what does a half mean? To divide something into two pieces is quite simple. You take one thing and divide it into two. But to halve something is specifically when you take one whole and you split it into two equal parts. That's what makes it half. Now, halving a simple shape like a circle is easy. It's a circle. If you cut a straight line through it, as long as that line crosses the center of the circle, you've got two equal halves of a circle. But a ham sandwich is not a simple shape. It is a complex object. So we need to figure out the components and the ratio of all of the components there in order to halve it into two equal pieces. But this should already be ringing some alarm bells in your head, because the claim is that half is bread, but if we are splitting it into two equal halves, then some ham needs to be remaining. But let's just, for argument's sake, halve the ham sandwich. Now, a typical ham sandwich, like the one we assume, is composed of roughly 2/3 bread and 1/3 ham, and that's ignoring the butter, but you know, that's fine. I mean, butter's like painting bread, so it doesn't really feel like you're really adding much to it, but anyway, it's just to make things simpler. And so if a assumed ham sandwich is composed of 2/3 bread, 1/3 ham, roughly, then when we halve it, we are going to be left with two pieces that are also composed of 2/3 bread, 1/3 ham. And what this means is already we've disproven this statement, and it is now invalid. But we will continue to try. So you've now split the ham sandwich into two halves with equal components, and you can give them to people to eat, I guess. But that still doesn't do anything with our statement, so perhaps they meant something else. What they're saying here is that a ham sandwich is half made up of bread. The components of a ham sandwich are 50% bread. But that's not true either, because as we just discussed, it's 2/3 bread, 1/3 ham. If you were to halve an assumed ham sandwich into its components and to be left with one hand of bread, you would be left with another hand of ham and a bit of bread. And that doesn't really feel like what the statement is implying. You're implying that you'll be left with all of the bread if you were to halve the components of the sandwich, which just isn't true. But again, there was no context provided, so perhaps they're speaking on factual terms about a very specific ham sandwich. Maybe they're talking about a ham sandwich that looks a little more like this. Now, this is a case where 50% of this ham sandwich is made up of bread, and that's cool. But this is a very irregular ham sandwich, and not one that people would assume. So by just outwardly saying half of a ham sandwich is bread, really starts to feel much more invalid. But can we make it valid? The answer is yes. If we just change some things about this statement, then we can actually create one that actually does make sense. And it looks a little something like this. 50% of this ham sandwich is bread. And there you have it. That is a valid statement made about a very strange ham sandwich. But then the question must be asked, why the hell did you say that? And why do I care? It's a very odd ham sandwich. Did you see this ham sandwich and you're just pointing out that 50% of it is bread? The fact that you have to point out that 50% of it's bread just goes to show how ridiculous the original statement is for assuming that a regular ham sandwich is made up 50% of bread, because it's such a point to be made. So, is half of a ham sandwich bread? No. No, it is not. But 50% of this ham sandwich is. How are we going to celebrate such a monumentous occasion? The celebration of the first 100 people who looked at this channel and went, yeah, that's alright. Sound good? Then let's get to work. I think it's about time I introduced you all to my editor.